Before we go any further, subscribe to this channel and share it with someone who actually cares about how people survived before modern gear and marketing slogans replaced hard-earned knowledge. What you're about to hear is not theory, not fantasy, and not modern bushcraft cosplay. This is a survival principle rooted in historical fieldcraft, practiced by hunters, soldiers, and displaced peoples long before insulation ratings and synthetic fabrics existed. If you're serious about understanding how humans stayed warm, hidden, and alive with almost nothing, stay with me, because this method changes how you think about shelter entirely. For the first minute, let me hook you with the truth most people miss. Cold does not kill by temperature alone. It kills by exposure, movement of air, moisture, and heat signature. Every modern shelter advertises comfort, but historically, comfort was irrelevant. Survival meant remaining unseen, retaining body heat, and avoiding detection by animals, enemies, or the environment itself. The ghost shelter method is about thermal invisibility. It is a way of building a shelter that does not announce your presence through heat loss, reflected light, or silhouette. This is why it mattered to medieval scouts, indigenous hunters, resistance fighters, and frontier trappers. They weren't building cabins, they were building silence. The reason the ghost shelter works is simple physics understood intuitively long before it was written down. Heat rises, wind strips warmth, and the ground steals heat faster than air ever will. A visible shelter fights the environment. A ghost shelter cooperates with it. Instead of standing out, it sinks in. Instead of trapping heat in a box, it reduces the ways heat can escape at all. Right, so the first principle of the ghost shelter method is ground integration rather than elevation. Historically, folks learned that even a shallow depression could outperform a raised structure in cold conditions. When you build down instead of up, you reduce wind exposure and stabilize temperature. Soil actually stays warmer than the night air in cold conditions, and, cooler than the air in heat. A practical example is digging a shallow trench, just deep enough to sit or lie in, never wide enough to waste body heat. This was done all across Eurasia and North America in hunting blinds and temporary cold camps. The mistake modern survivalists often make is digging too much and wearing themselves out. The goal, really, is thermal balance, not architecture. The second principle is layered dead air, not insulation as we think of it today. Dead air is warmth. Historical shelters relied on overlapping organic materials that trapped still air without compressing it. Grass, reeds, leaf litter, bark slabs, and even sod were layered in alternating directions. The important detail is dryness. Wet materials conduct heat away from the body rapidly. A practical application today is using dry leaf litter between two thin layers of fabric or natural covering. Even a modern tarp, becomes far more effective when separated from the body by a hand's width of trapped air rather than pressed directly against you. The third principle is thermal masking, which is where the ghost name really comes into play. Any warm human body creates a heat plume. Animals sense it. Humans with basic detection equipment can see it. Historically, shelters were designed to diffuse that heat gradually into the ground and surrounding materials, not vent it upward. This is why low entrances mattered, and why fires, when used, were placed outside and reflected inward using stone or earth. A practical example is positioning your shelter against a natural embankment or a fallen log, so heat disperses sideways instead of vertically. Even today, this reduces visibility to wildlife and honestly minimizes heat loss overnight. The fourth principle is moisture control, which historians often overlook. Breath alone can soak a shelter interior by morning. Traditional ghost shelters used absorbent natural materials above the sleeper, not to insulate but to capture condensation before it dripped back down. This is why bark, moss and woven grass mats appear repeatedly in archaeological shelter remains. You can apply this by placing a thin absorbent layer above you and replacing it daily if needed. This single habit dramatically increases warmth and survivability. So, the fifth principle is what we call scale discipline. You know, historical shelters were built only as large as necessary, never any bigger. Empty space, well, that's really the enemy of warmth. A shelter that's sized precisely to fit your body warms up quicker and honestly, it stays warmer. That's why, when you look at many historical winter shelters, they might feel a bit claustrophobic by modern standards. But you see, they were never meant for comfort or for moving about. They were built for survival, plain and simple. When you try this today, resist that urge to stand up inside or store all your gear. Just sleep, rest, and then leave. And now, the final principle, impermanence. The ghost shelter, well, it was never meant to last for weeks on end. It was designed to disappear. Materials were always returned to the environment, depressions filled in, and any evidence erased. Historically, this was important for security and for hunting success. These days, it matters for ethics and, for stealth as well. A shelter that leaves no trace is not only accurate to history, but it's also the responsible thing to do for the environment. If you take just one lesson from this guide, let it be this. Survival isn't about fighting nature with fancier gear. It's really about understanding how humans once moved quietly within it. The ghost shelter method, it's not some trick or gimmick. It's a mindset grounded in history, physics, and, well, lived experience. So, if this kind of deep, practical historical knowledge matters to you, do consider subscribing to the channel. Share this video with someone who values real survival history and, keep this knowledge alive by passing it on.